Breaking news from the New York Yankees. They have acquired closer Devin Williams in a trade with the Milwaukee Brewers for a package that includes Nestor Cortez and Durbin as well as second baseman. Good trade here for both sides. Brewers were known to be looking for some starting pitching. They get that with Cortez, but my oh my, the Yankees are certainly starting to make some serious acquisitions. A day after it was announced essentially that Bellinger now, that they were in the lead for Bellinger to possibly acquire him, that they're trying hard for Kyle Tucker. They still have their irons in the fire in the free agency market. The Yankees are very active after losing Juan Soto in free agency, and they should be. They have to make up for that loss, and they have to improve off of what they already had, even if they brought back Juan Soto. So congratulations, Yankees. You've done a nice job rebuilding that pitching staff. That and more next here at The Upside. We'll start with the trade itself. The New York Yankees are acquiring Devin Williams, making about $9 million on his deal. Great closer for them. They had some issues in the bullpen last year. That was a key point for them to try to improve upon this year. Instead of going the free agency route and investing big money, long-term deal, those kinds of things, they decided to go with a higher ceiling guy here in Devin Williams. I thought all along he was going to end up as a member of the LA Dodgers. Dodgers, of course, are the favorite on the National League side. There really is kind of an open playing field on the American League side. The Yankees were there, but by no means are they considered the favorite compared to all the other teams in the American League. They have to get back to where they were last year and then build on it. They've done a really great job helping out that pitching staff. Max Fried made the loss of Nestor Cortez sting just a little bit less, and they may still add some more starting pitching here. But I really like what the Yankees have done here, taking an area of strength, dealing from that area of strength while still keeping it strong with the acquisition of Max Fried, and now they've bolstered another area of need here with Devin Williams. Now they still haven't really addressed the offense. They're still very much interested in bringing in Kyle Tucker. That seems to be their number one target right now. If they don't get Tucker, then I think they'll pivot to Bellinger, Walker, Bregman, Hernandez, a number of other guys. But for them to get Devin Williams here for just Nestor Cortez and the breakout prospect of the year, or at least for the Yankees system, at least that's what he's being touted as. That's a pretty good deal. Understandably, they usually like to go more of the quantity route. They decided to take a guy off of their 40-man roster here to try to save some roster flexibility, I would guess, rather than going the quantity route in the minor leagues. I wonder if that's going to be the route they ultimately go for Kyle Tucker or for Cody Bellinger. Both of those irons are still in the fire. The Yankees are putting the pedal to the metal. They're not just going to let the Mets take the front page and say, well, I guess we'll just be relegated to wild card contention. They're still trying to win, and I love this move for the Yankees. Let's look at what their rotation looks like right now. Let me pull up their roster for you guys. Get this pulled up here. Pull up the New York Yankees. We're going to look at positional grouping. Okay, so of course you have Garrett Cole as your 1. Fried is probably your number 2 right now. Rodon is your 3, Stroman is your 4, Schmidt is your 5. Cortez is a little bit expendable there, so they deal from that. They also have Heel still in there, and he might be a part of the Kyle Tucker trade. That's why I didn't mention him as a number 1 as a rotation option right now, because I think he will be going in that Kyle Tucker trade if he does go to the Yankees. If he doesn't, obviously you put him in there. But those are kind of where your rotation is at right now. But look at the way that bullpen was really set up. Mark Leiter and a bunch of question marks. And even Mark Leiter, to a certain extent, is a bit of a question mark in and of himself. Still has great value, strikeout numbers, those kinds of things. But he's not exactly a guy you would count on in a 9th inning role or even in an 8th inning role. I think he's very good situationally in the 6th or 7th inning. So they need to get a couple of high leverage guys in here. And so a great move here by the Yankees to get probably the top option on the trade market in Devin Williams. Now, I wonder where the market is going to go after this. I told you guys last night that once the relievers start coming off the board, expect them to start flying. So now that we've gotten the top trade option off the board, I wonder if we start seeing Tanner Scott and Kirby Yates come to agreements here by the end of the week. I would not be surprised. Rangers are always active in the week leading up to Christmas, so they still have a couple of high leverage needs out there. I'd expect them to land 1 or 2 of those high leverage guys out there. David Robertson kind of fits the 8th inning role for them. It'd be great if they could get Yates and Robertson back. That's one team that's looking for some closers and relief help. Other teams include the LA Dodgers. Now that they've missed out on Devin Williams, I would expect them to try to circle back to Tanner Scott. He seems to be their top option besides Devin Williams. They didn't have to trade Gavin Lux off of this roster, so they now have more ammunition if they decide to go in on a trade for somebody. But the Dodgers sitting pretty on the National League side. But the Yankees here, that's really where the story is for me. They deal from a position of strength in Nestor Cortez. They solve a position of need there with Devin Williams. And they still have plenty of ammunition now to go after Kyle Tucker, to go after Cody Bellinger, to go into free agency and spend. Really like what the Yankees did here, kind of coming out of nowhere to be the team that brings in Devin Williams. I'm sure they were in there all along. I'm not saying that they weren't. But they weren't necessarily considered a favorite. I think there was other relief options that we even considered more likely to go to them, including Tanner Scott. But they would rather have Devin Williams, and there's nothing precluding them from still adding more pieces to that bullpen, more closers to that bullpen as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if they doubled down in that relief market. But the Yankees get their guy. On the Brewers side of things, the one thing this young team really needed was some starting pitching. We've seen the issues that they have in that rotation. They needed some more consistency, and Cortez has been up and down, health concerns, etc. But he's better than what the Brewers had recently, and so he's a good get for them. Like the addition there. The minor league prospect as well is a good addition for them. A really good position player group kind of came up all at the same time last year and performed at the major league level. I would expect some of them to have even better seasons this year. Some of those guys are going to regress. You can never stop adding to your farm system. So I like the deal from both perspectives. They solve an issue in their rotation by dealing from what we all expected was a position where they weren't willing to spend on a guy like Devin Williams. So really like the deal for both teams. Let us know in the comment section what you think about the Yankees' return in this, getting Devin Williams in exchange for Nestor Cortez and a prospect. I think this really sets them up well for whatever else they want to do in free agency and in the trade market. They don't really trade too many trade chips to where they are out on Bellinger or they're out on Tucker or any of the other top targets that they're interested in bringing in. So I love this deal from the Yankees' perspective. I would give it probably an A- right now. As far as the Brewers side of things, I give this an A plus. You get a starter that you can immediately jump into that rotation right now. You get a long-term prospect there. Sure, would you have liked a Luis Heel? Sure, but you're not going to get him for one or for just the short-term deal that Devin Williams has left on his contract. But love the deal overall for both sides. Win-win for both teams. Unlike what we saw with the Toronto Blue Jays, where they brought in Jimenez in exchange for Horowitz and a prospect anyway. Didn't really like that deal. I don't like how that sets them up going forward. Unless they're expecting the bat to really come around for Jimenez, I don't see the reason why they do it. Horowitz was a very comparable player, at least on the offensive side of things. Defense, obviously, is the bailiwick for Jimenez. I didn't really see the logic in that move. Love the way the Guardians were able to flip Jimenez and then Horowitz for a really nice package of pieces to kind of continue what they've been doing over the last couple of years. And they look like they're in good shape. I love what the Rangers have done this offseason. Yankees have done a really nice job, even with the loss of Juan Soto. I'm still curious where their offseason plan is going to go in regards to their lineup, but I love their pitching addition so far, and I don't think they're done. But let us know in the comment section what you think of the additions. What do you guys give the trade grade out there? So welcome in, Sean. When will Kyle Tucker be traded? I would expect very soon. I would expect before Christmas. Honestly, I would expect, hopefully before the end of the weekend. So with this trade of Devin Williams, I think this gives the Yankees a little bit more gumption to go out there and try to get other things done. Now that they've got their closer, they can focus their energies on their top priority, which seems to be Kyle Tucker right now. I'm a little bit surprised that they went Devin Williams first. I thought Kyle Tucker would have been the guy to go before him, but Tucker's got a very good market out there. The Cubs, Yankees, Phillies, Mets, Blue Jays, Dodgers to a certain extent. Pretty much any team that's in need of a corner outfielder has checked in on the Houston Astros for Kyle Tucker. I think he's going to be moved. I would expect to one of the Cubs or Yankees. Other news that we're kind of paying attention to this morning is what's happening with Corbin Burnes and Alex Bregman. Those are the top two guys in the free agent market that are kind of holding up things over the last 24 hours. Ever since the winter meetings ended on Wednesday night, everybody kind of had time to get back to their homes, settle in. This is the first real major addition that we've seen by any club since the end of the winter meetings here, with Devin Williams going to the Yankees here. And I think we're going to see some free agents start to come off the board by the weekend. Bregman and Burnes are the two guys that are holding up a few things here. For instance, if he goes to, say, Toronto, that takes up a spot. The Red Sox then would pivot to another option at either third base or a corner outfield spot, maybe even add a starting pitcher. The Yankees, Bregman being gone, I think clears the way for them to add a Bellinger, a Walker, some type of piece to that lineup where they absolutely need to improve. The loss of Juan Soto they need to adjust for. They haven't done anything to address that offense yet, but I love the additions they've made on the pitching side of things. The Mets, they bring in Juan Soto, but they're not done. They're speaking to Pete Alonso. Steve Cohen was speaking with reporters this morning, say he's had great conversations with Pete Alonso's camp and Pete Alonso himself. I would expect him to ultimately end back up with the Mets. Not saying it's 100% fait accompli at this point, but I am saying it's probably 95% certain that he's going to go back to the Mets. It's just a matter of what number it's going to end up going to. I would expect, coming into free agency, he would have gotten 5 for 25 per year. That's 125 million in total value of a contract. I think he's probably going to get a little bit north of that because of his conversations that he's had with Cohen, the investment that Soto has, the Mets have made in Soto. And I don't think they want to necessarily downgrade at first base. Pete Alonso is a very good power option, gives some protection in that lineup from a power perspective. Not really what you want as far as an average, hit for average kind of a guy or defensively, but he's still a much better option at first base than anything they have at the moment. Welcome in, Terry. Welcome in, Fish Hobbyist. It is a great trade. I love the trade for both sides. Devin Williams for the Yankees, Cortez and a minor leaguer to the Brewers. Now it's time for Bellinger and Tucker. I would agree there. I think Bellinger is probably the easiest to get done, but I wonder if the Yankees are going to try to push Tucker across the finish line first. I would imagine with them getting Devin Williams, they're going to focus all their attentions on one of those two options and then focus on free agents. Fish Hobbyist, he is a free agent next year. He will leave. That's the worry that we have with Kyle Tucker. That's why I wouldn't necessarily do it. The trade value is way too high right now going back the Houston Astros way. That's why I do it if I'm Houston. If I'm the Cubs or the Yankees, ideally I would not do the move. I'd wait till free agency, but I get the need to overcome Soto. I get the need to add a star to your lineup. So I understand why the teams are at least considering these options. Do I think that they will win the trade? I do not. I think that the Houston Astros have clearly already won the trade, and we don't even know what the return is yet. We just know that the package of pieces going back to Houston is going to be far more valuable right now than what the Yankees or the Cubs are going to be getting in Kyle Tucker. That's why I would wait for free agency. But again, they're trying to get the best player on the deal. Tucker is a great player. He would be the best deal or player in the deal if they get him to an extension. Then, of course, you can talk about them winning the trade. But I think he's going to go to free agency. He's said as much multiple times. He's going to go to the high bidder in free agency. So we'll see when that happens. And speaking of that, Sean, when will Kyle Tucker and Cody Bellinger be traded? Like I just said, I'm expecting Tucker hopefully by the end of the weekend. Bellinger, I think, could be very similar as well. The Cubs are trying to, say in the media anyway, that they're not trying to trade both guys. I get it, posturing, but we know where they're at as an organization. They're trying to shuffle up the deck a little bit, save a little bit of money on Bellinger, and by bringing in Kyle Tucker, they improve offensively. They offload the deal of Suzuki, and then Bellinger, they would save even more money. They could add to the rotation at that point with the money they save on Bellinger. I thought a Nestor Cortez piece might have been a nice addition here for Cody Bellinger, but instead they go to the Devin Williams trade first before they go to Bellinger. I like Devin Williams as a piece for them a little bit more. I think there's a trade still to be made between the two teams without Nestor Cortez necessarily being the pitching addition there, but I really like the addition here for the Yankees. Williams is also a free agent after the season. Don't like these one-year trades. I agree, but, when you get to this level of competition, when you're trying to compete for a World Series, you have to invest somewhere at some point, and you're going to have to take a risk. Maybe you lose them in free agency. Bullpens are notoriously mercurial, and there's no shortage of arms every single offseason. Now, the question is, how much do you have to pay for those arms every offseason? That's a bigger number. But Devin Williams, there's no doubting his abilities, his ceiling. I love the pitcher himself, and really like where the Yankees are setting themselves up on the pitching side of things. Sean, prediction where Kyle Tucker will end up. My prediction is still the Cubs. I think the deal with the Chicago Cubs is still a little bit better for the Houston Astros and what they need. I'm not saying the Yankees can't overwhelm them with more, but what I am saying is that the pieces that are already on the table from the Chicago Cubs, including Suzuki and Paredes and a prospect, that's a deal that where they can immediately solve the issues with Bregman and Tucker leaving. They still recoup some value and now can go out and spend more money at first base on Christian Walker. And if they want even more of a return, they could include Ryan Presley going to the Cubs as well. Those are all things that could be in the offing here for the Chicago Cubs. I would like that deal for the Houston Astros more though. I mean, you're talking about improving your roster while at the same time adding to your prospect depth. A team that's really struggled over the last couple of years to maintain that farm system. They traded away whatever was left of that farm system in the Verlander deal. And, for me, I think the Astros are going to do great no matter what they do with the Kyle Tucker trade right now. But for me, I'd still predict the Cubs, but I'd say the Yankees are right there as well. Thank you guys for joining us once again. Hit that like and subscribe. If you're just joining us, Devin Williams has been traded to the New York Yankees for a package that includes Nestor Cortez and the Yankees minor league prospect of the year in Durbin, infield prospect for them. So the Brewers once again continue to add to their position player depth, like the addition as far as that goes, but they needed some starting pitching, and that's what they get here with Cortez. Yankees, you look at the screen that I have on right now, Cole, Rodon, doesn't have Fried in there yet, so that's 3. Stroman 4, Schmidt 5, and that's not even counting Luis Gil, who, if they trade for Kyle Tucker, would be a part of that deal. So they already have a really good depth here in their starting staff. I'd still expect them to try to add one more starter to kind of give them more depth here now that they've lost Cortez. Probably go free agency route for that. A 1-year $4 million contract makes some sense here. A guy who can pitch out of the bullpen in long relief until he's needed in the starting rotation. But the Yankees deal from a position of strength in Cortez and bring in an absolute need this offseason in Devin Williams. They needed a closer, and they get one, probably the top guy on the trade market and possibly even the free agent market. Now attention is going to turn towards Tanner Scott and Kirby Yates on the free agent market, Ryan Helsley in the trade market. There's a bunch of different options out there right now for relief pitching, but now that we've had the first domino go, expect those dominoes to start falling very quickly here in the next 24 to 48 hours. I would expect a flurry of activity around relievers now that the first one has come off the board. Dodgers are needing something back there. They did bring in Blake Trinan. I still expect them to try to add another closer-type pitcher to their to their bullpen. Tanner Scott makes a lot of sense. He's been connected there a few different times now. We'll see where he ultimately ends up. Let's check in on X, see if anything else is happening, see if there's any other pieces moving as part of that trade. Passon has a tweet here about Devin Williams. Since his debut in 2019, Williams ranks among relievers with at least 200 innings pitched. ERA, 2nd. Ks, 4th. Home runs per 9, 6th. And hits per 9, 1st. He is a truly elite reliever and is now back in the back end of the Yankees bullpen. He is elite. The question, of course, is injuries. Is he able to stay healthy? Stop punching walls and having those types of issues. But it looks like the Yankees will be sending money to the Brewers as well. Nice. That's an even better deal for the Brewers because the Brewers. The reason why they were going to trade Devin Williams is because of money constraints. They don't necessarily have a long-term deal in place for him, and they weren't going to try to spend money to retain him as well. And so the deal here: Cortez, Durbin, and cash to the Brewers. I like this deal even more for the Brewers. I already gave it an A+ for Milwaukee. That's definitely an A++ now for me. Love the deal for Milwaukee. I love the deal for the Yankees. This is truly a win-win trade. It's very rare we see a win-win type of a trade in Major League Baseball these days, but I love this deal for both teams. The Yankees get exactly what they want, a high-quality, elite-level closer, while the Brewers here add to their rotation, save a little bit of money, get some money to pay for the contract of Cortez, and add to their prospect depth in their minor league. So, love the deal for both sides. Cortez and Williams, both free agents after the season. True. Each were calculated around $7.7 million. So basically, it's a neutral trade as far as overall value between the two guys as far as contracts. But a position of need in Cortez, they solved there, and they're getting the New York Yankees to eat some of the cost of Cortez as well. So pretty good deal here for both sides. Welcome back, Jonathan. Good afternoon. With the Mets locking up Soto, could Buehler, Flaherty, and Manaea be on the radar for the Mets? I believe all three of those guys are on the radar. They've talked to Manaea. I know they were in negotiations with him as most recently as yesterday. Buehler, they've had discussions with as well. Flaherty, I haven't heard too many rumors about, but I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up being their number 2 in that rotation. But I think their preference right now would be Manaea 1, Buehler 2, and Flaherty 3, if I had to guess out of that group there, Jonathan. Welcome in, JG. Welcome back. If you guys are new here, appreciate all 25 of you guys right now with us. Be sure to say hi, hit that like and subscribe. And, what do you guys think of this trade? Yankees and Brewers. Yankees getting Devin Williams. Brewers getting Cash, Cortez, and Durbin out of it. Just saw the Yankees fleeced the Brewers. I don't know necessarily about fleeced. I just gave this grade an A++ for the Brewers, and I gave this an A- for the Yankees. I love the deal for both sides. It's a win-win as far as I'm concerned. Brewers needed to add some starting pitching. They do so without taking on extra money. They don't have to sign anybody in free agency. They get a year to see if they like Cortez and see if they are able to extend into an offer. Yankees deal from a position of strength, so they're not losing anything out of that rotation, really, especially after the addition of Max Fried. They solve a position of need there with Devin Williams, and on the Brewers side of things, they get the Yankees to pay down some of that Cortez contract anyway, which is part of the issue why they were looking to trade Devin Williams anyway. They weren't willing to go long-term for Devin Williams in the offseason. That's why they traded Josh Hader away. And now they've done the same with Corbin Burns and now with Devin Williams. So more of the same here for the Brewers. I love the trade for both sides, though. I'm not going to say either team won or lost the trade as far as between the two. One team did better than the other. I just think both teams did great for what they needed to do. Yankees are in a different position as far as trying to win now. Same thing with the Brewers. The Brewers are trying to get a lot better and improve their rotation, and both teams accomplished their goals with this trade. I love the trade for both sides. You don't really like to hear analysts get up there and ride the fence a little bit, but for me, both sides did very well in this one. Devin Williams, I thought all along was going to end up with the LA Dodgers, and for the Dodgers to not get their top option as far as a closer, that's going to sting a little bit. I think they could pivot quickly here to a guy like Tanner Scott, but for me, I think Devin Williams would have been a perfect fit to the Dodgers bullpen. They're not going to have him. It's the Yankees who are going to have the better closer once they get to the postseason, and that's a very good thing for him. What's Durbin projection? He is the minor league prospect of the year for the Yankees. He was a very good piece for them. Grew a lot this past year, and he's going to go to a very deep position player group there in Milwaukee, where they continue to add and add and add. Now, you always worry about young bats in the sophomore slump, and there's going to be some guys that suffer through that, but there's also going to be others that succeed. Durbin's going to be a good option for when some of those options start to falter. They then can pivot to putting him in the lineup at some point. But for me, the trade is about bringing in a starting pitcher, getting the Yankees to pay down on Cortez while still adding to their prospect depth. That's why the Brewers did this trade. Love the deal overall. Kind of a one-for-one trade for me as far as value goes. Very similar values each way, so I don't think either team necessarily won or lost. I think it's more of a win-win for both. They filled different needs on each other's roster, so this trade is a really good baseball-type trade. Very rarely do you see baseball trades anymore. Major leaguers for major leaguers. You usually see what the Rangers did, trading Jake Berger for 3 minor league guys that were outside of their top 15. This was a true baseball trade, and I love this trade for both teams. It solves huge issues in both organizations. This means Tucker is going to the Cubs. Don't see New York giving up more pitching. Honestly, I think they could. I just went over their depth and their rotation. I'll do it once again, JG, just since you guys just joined us. Look at their rotation. Cole is their 1. Fried isn't on this screen, but put him as number 2. Rodon 3, Stroman 4, Schmidt 5, and then you still have Heel there as well and some other lower level depth options. You're a little bit thin. I think they could go into free agency to add another starter, say a depth guy who can come in and be a long reliever to start the year and then be your spot starter when you have injuries. But if you put Heel as your headliner, you put Jones in that package and a few other pieces, I still think it's possible for them to bring in Kyle Tucker. I don't think they're trying to win in 2028 right now. I think they're trying to focus on winning and pivoting after losing Juan Soto. And I still think Kyle Tucker is still very much in the race here for the New York Yankees. My favorite for them, for Kyle Tucker, though, is still the Cubs. I think that package still fits Houston a little bit better. The only way the New York Yankees win that is if they overwhelm that Cubs offer with just so much talent on the minor league side that the Astros just can't say no. On the major league side, the baseball trade that we just saw, Devin Williams going to the Yankees, Nestor Cortez and a piece going to the Brewers, the Cubs fit the description of a baseball trade better than what the New York Yankees do. Now, sure, you're getting a better long-term starter out of it with Luis Heel in the deal for the Yankees, which if you're targeting starting pitching, maybe you prefer the Yankees offer. But you solve the issues left by free agents or players going to free agency in Bregman and Tucker by bringing in Paredes and Suzuki while still adding to your minor league depth. I think both teams are still very much in that argument. But appreciate you guys joining us this afternoon. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe. Looks like Alex Cobb just had his deal go official. Cam Smith and Paredes, that can't be all, right? No, it's not. Suzuki is going to be there. Let me go ahead and pull up the Twitter page one more time just to see if anything else is happening. A lot of talk about the Williams and Cortez trade. A lot of people tweeting about it because it's the Yankees. Nate Eovaldi was announced just before the trade became official that he has officially signed his 3-year, $75 million deal. And he had his press conference this morning. Really great stand-up guy, great clubhouse guy. Congratulations, Rangers, on getting some stability for that organization in that pitching staff. Really like the way the Rangers have set up their pitching staff for the next few years. You got DeGrom and Eovaldi basically hitting free agency at the same time now. John Gray is going to be hitting free agency along with Molly at the end of this year. If Molly does well this year, we're talking about one of the deepest rotations in baseball. I still give that title right now to the Seattle Mariners. But you look at the Yankees, they're still pretty deep up there. The Dodgers are probably the best rotation outside of their number 5 spot, which by the time they get to the end of the offseason, I think they will surpass the Mariners as the best rotation. But I really like what the Rangers have done with their rotation. A lot of question marks, though, but if it hits, they could do very well. Patrick, good for them. They don't need, they'll need because they can't score enough runs now that Soto defected to the best. Let's freaking go, Mets. Okay. I like that one, Patrick. Welcome in. I haven't seen you comment in here before, so welcome in, welcome in. If you guys wouldn't mind hitting that subscribe, it really does help us out. But I get what you're saying there. The offense is still a big issue, though, for the New York Yankees. They did a great job now of addressing their pitching staff, a starter in Fried, and a closer in Williams. They need to get in some type of a bat. I think they need at least one left-handed hitter, probably 2. Bellinger and Tucker could be those 2 guys, but they need to address that offense. Soto was a huge cog in that lineup. They had to make trades at the deadline last year because they had below league average production out of too many spots. So they made the trade for Jazz Chisholm. He was a little bit better than league average, but far and away they need to improve that lineup right now. They need to address the outfield. They need to address first base. They need to address third. I think they will. The question is, which way do they decide to go? Do they bring in Bellinger and then sign a Christian Walker, put Bellinger out there in the outfield? Or do they, trade for Bellinger, bring in Kyle Tucker, and then go to free agency for Alex Bregman or a Teoscar Hernandez? All of these things are irons in the fire right now for the Yankees, and I would expect them to still look to add another bullpen piece as well. Let's go ahead and scroll up here just to see if anything else is coming through. Guardians news there. Okay, flip over to MLB trade rumors. Nothing there. Let's do baseball trade values and just see what the value here looks like. Alrighty, so there's the value going to the Brewers. Cortez, Durbin, and Cash, remember, going to Milwaukee in exchange for Devin Williams. I think Devin Williams has the higher ceiling of the two players. It's because Cortez is going to be throwing more innings, is why his value is a little bit higher. Starters are always going to be a little bit more valuable than necessarily a closer. But the Yankees' needs were for a closer. So, like I said, I still think this is a win-win for both sides. I just like the Brewers side of it a hair more for them, just because they get everything they need. They get a starter. They add to their prospect depth. They don't have to pay long-term money for Devin Williams. They get the Yankees to pay down the contract of Cortez, so they save money this year. And if things work out, they can re-sign Cortez for next season. Whereas Williams, I don't think there was a snowball's chance that they would have re-signed him in the offseason. I think Devin Williams is always going to leave them in free agency. I think Cortez, the way his career has gone, he might actually take an extension with the Brew Crew. I think he's their type of pitcher. I think he kind of fits the build of what they're looking for in that rotation. So I love the deal for both sides. Yankees get that high elite, high ceiling pitcher in the back end of their bullpen, and I think they're going to add another guy just like that in front of him. Welcome in, Michael. Appreciate you joining us. They are done with adding starting pitching and bullpen. Now they have to add a third baseman, a first baseman, and a left fielder. I don't think they're done adding to that bullpen. I think they're still going to add another eighth inning guy to that bullpen. There's still more work to be done. But I agree with you on third, first, and left. They may not go at the top of the market for Scott, but I think Scott would be a great option back there. It seems like the Yankees were trying to use their strength to be their pitching staff now rather than that lineup. You still have Aaron Judge to really carry things, but they have to get better in that lineup. They have to improve at first base, and they will. It's just a matter of which way they ultimately decide to go. I think Walker, like you mentioned there, would be a great option for them at first base. He is a right-handed hitter, though. I wonder if they would prefer a left-handed hitter. If they do, maybe a guy like Nathaniel Lowe, if they decide to go a little bit cheaper at first base and then sign somebody in free agency like an Alex Bregman. There's a lot of options still out there for the Yankees. They could go a number of different directions. Some options are better than others. Free agency, for me, is always a better option because you're not giving up minor league talent, especially when you're in a market like the New York Yankees or the LA Dodgers, teams that can afford high payrolls. Now, if you're in a small market team, free agency might be a little bit difficult for you, so you have to go the trade route to keep the salaries down. Speaking of teams like the A's, the Guardians, the Pirates, teams like that have to do it via trade, whereas teams like the Yankees, they can afford to go into free agency and take on a bad contract. You look at the LA Dodgers right now, where's Chris Taylor in their everyday lineup? That's a guy that's making $15-ish million a season, and he's basically a non-factor on that roster right now. And I expect him to be a non-factor next year because they have the wherewithal to take that money and absorb it and still be just fine and go out there and make the additions they need to make them a great team. I think they're going to put Cody at first, and your outfield would be Judge, Tucker, and Dominguez. That would be a phenomenal outfield. I love that outfield for them. If they go with Bellinger at first base or Walker, both of those options would be great as well. But Tucker, that would really give them a dynamic offense for this upcoming season. I'm not arguing that this year wouldn't be great for them bringing in Tucker. The question will be, are you able to re-sign him? Because if you don't, you worry about losing him just like you did Juan Soto. I wonder if they try to steer clear of that situation and try to do it in free agency. But I think the Yankees are just kind of clouded right now by the fact that they have to win. They have to win right now. They have to improve this ball club. They can't be seen as a second citizen in New York, especially when the crosstown Mets just took your second best player. So I think they're going to go all out here for a guy like Kyle Tucker. And, I can't fault them for doing so. I get the reasons why they're doing it. I just would choose to do it differently. Great contact as always, buddy. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate you for joining us. We'll talk a little bit about your Giants here in just a moment. What if they sign another reliever? I just expect Tim Hill or a B move or something. They're not going to sign Tanner Scott. That's for sure. We know he's not coming. I wouldn't necessarily say they're out on Scott. I wouldn't say that at all. I think the Dodgers are still a favorite there for Tanner Scott now that Devin Williams is gone off the market. I think he now becomes their top target for their bullpen. There's still a bunch of late inning options here. We're talking about guys like Kirby Yates, Ryan Helsley from the St. Louis Cardinals. There's some rumblings that the Guardians might be willing to trade Emmanuel Clase. And then as far as other free agents out there, you got a bunch of eighth inning guys that are out there still. Looking at David Robertson, who also has experience there in New York. I wouldn't say those are also ran options. I think those are still high leverage, very good options for a great bullpen out there. And those pieces are going to start coming off the board very, very quickly. Welcome in, Sub-Zero. So who did the Yankees give up? For those of you just joining us, the trade that we just saw, Devin Williams goes to the New York Yankees in exchange for Nestor Cortez. They also include Durbin, a minor league prospect of the year for the Yankees, and some cash to pay down Cortez. In case you guys were wondering, I give this trade an A- for the Yankees. Love the addition of Devin Williams. Really solves a big area of need. They trade from a position of strength in their rotation. Meanwhile, Cortez is a free agent after the year as well. But I think the Brewers have far better chance of being able to re-sign him at an extension number that really works for them if things work out with the Brewers this year. They get the Yankees to pay down his contract this year, and they get a prospect out of it. So really love the deal for both sides. A++ is what I give the Brewers for this deal because they get the starting pitcher, they get a prospect out of it, and they get the Yankees to pay down Cortez, and they still have flexibility to still add to this bullpen in free agency. Go for say like a seventh, eighth inning guy that most teams might consider for 1 year $4 million and be able to offer him a little bit more because of the money they've given to Cortez from the Yankees. They have more flexibility now because they've added to their rotation without having to spend at the starting pitching price points that we're seeing right now. Starting pitchers are getting paid this offseason. For them to add one via trade and get the Yankees to basically pay his salary, not too bad of an argument there. Do you think they're done adding starting pitching? I do. The only one think that I think they add another pitcher only if they lose Heel in the Tucker trade. I think even if they stand pat right now, they would be wise to still add to that bullpen. An eighth inning guy is still a must for me for the Yankees, and then kind of a sixth, seventh inning guy. If that guy turns out to be a long relief option, so be it. But if they make the trade for Kyle Tucker, great on them, but they're going to have to address that rotation if they lose Luis Heel in that deal as well. But again, I still like their rotation with the top three, with Cole, Fried, and Rodon as the 1, 2, 3, Stroman as your 4, and then Schmidt as your 5. But they still need more depth there as well. Really love the way the Yankees have set up their 1, 2, 3. The question would be the depth after that. If you have an injury to Garrett Cole where he misses 2 months of the season again, is your lineup or is your rotation good enough to be able to handle that for that length of time? Remains to be seen. Sub-Zero, well, once the Max Fried deal is done, then maybe they will get Tucker or Bellinger. I think the Fried deal is already pretty much there. It's just a matter of announcing it, that kind of a thing. But I do love the idea of them acquiring Cody Bellinger. I think that would be a great fit. Positional flexibility, left-handed hitter, fills 2 positions of need for them with one player. He can play first base or the outfield. That way you're not pigeonholed into trying to sign Teoscar Hernandez as an outfielder or Christian Walker as a first baseman. You can try to get your best deal for whichever option you prefer to go with. Yankees aren't done. They're still going to add multiple pieces this offseason, but a great start here, pivoting from the loss of Juan Soto, bringing in Devin Williams and Max Fried. If you guys want to drop a like, say hello in the chat. We really do appreciate that. I noticed we gained quite a few subscribers over the last 24, 48 hours, specifically over the last 12 hours. We've really gained like 20 to 30 subscribers. It's been incredible. The response from the community has really been profound. Really appreciate the animated conversation we had last night with in regards to the Yankees and the clubhouse drama there. The Juan Soto basically saying none of his teammates from the Yankees had reached out since the end of the season. Somewhat of a surprise. Could indicate clubhouse issues there, or maybe just an issue with Soto in that clubhouse. But in either event, he wasn't reached out to by the Yankees. That was some of the surprising news that came from the Soto press conference yesterday. And then we also had another animated discussion about the Baltimore Orioles and their inability to be willing to spend money in free agency on starting pitching. They've continually gone out and via trade to acquire their starting pitchers. Look at Jack Flaherty. Ultimately, he didn't pitch well. I get it. They let him go. Signed a 1 year, $8 or $9 million deal with the Tigers. Traded at the deadline to the Dodgers. He's now a part of free agency once again. They'd make the trade for Corbin Burns, trade out all this capital. You knew at the time he was probably going to be commanding a 7-year, $210 million contract when you made the trade for him a year ago. Now we're a year later. The numbers are still very similar there. Maybe you have to go to 8 years, 240, 250. But you knew what the numbers were going to look like when you traded for him. And so the arguments we were saying around the Orioles is if you're willing to make the deal, you knew full well at the time he was a free agent in a year. You knew pretty much what his value was going to be worth in the open market. If you were going to make the deal, you had to be comfortable with signing him to that number in free agency. Well, it sounds like Elias is not comfortable signing him to that number, and that's where I have an issue with the Orioles organization. If you're not willing to sign the guys that you trade for, you need to trade for guys with a lot more control, or you need to go a little bit cheaper in the rotation. You need to just set your fan base up and say, hey, We realize we're not willing to spend in free agency, so lower your expectations for what this rotation can do. Because right now, Zach Eflin is their one, Grayson Rodriguez is their two. That's not going to get it done in a playoff series. You could make the argument they trade again for Dylan, or they make another trade for Dylan Cease. Again, that's just going right back to the same barrel of Flaherty and Burns. You trade for a guy who's just about to hit free agency. He leaves you in free agency because you're not willing to spend at the top of the market for a starting pitcher, and rinse and repeat. Repeat the cycle, and over and over and over again. The Orioles would have this same problem. We'll see what ultimately happens. You short circuit your growth long term by continuing to do it that way, and they have a really good opportunity right now to capitalize on Adley Rutschman still being a force behind the plate instead of at first base or DH. Hitting at the catcher spot is invaluable in today's game when hitting as a catcher is almost non-existent. So, they don't have any big contracts to Gunnar Henderson yet or to Holiday. They need to capitalize on it right now and spend the money in free agency on that pitching staff and build it up a little bit. And then we can consider them in a favorite once again in the American League. But without Corbin Burns, I don't even consider them a favorite in their division. I think the Yankees at that point would have surpassed them, and they have their work cut out for them to be able to address that rotation the rest of this offseason. Don't know about Bregman. Bregman still could be a fit there with the Yankees. I really like the idea of Bregman going there. I know people prefer left-handed hitters for the Yankees because of the short porch and right. But for me, the leadership value, the vocal leadership that he would bring to that locker room or to that clubhouse would assuage any concerns I have about that clubhouse right now. Because when Rizzo went out, their vocal leader went out as well. So I don't think he was necessarily there every day to kind of keep the guys in line, to keep things going the way they should be. And they did get all the way to the World Series. Not to say that it was necessarily a horrible clubhouse. But what I am saying is when you don't reach out to your best player hitting free agency, or the best player in free agency right now being your own player in Juan Soto, that leaves a lot to be desired from a team building standpoint. And I think Bregman would be a guy that could reverse course there and be the leader, vocal leader on that team, whereas Judge, of course, is their best player, does it via example. But you need somebody in there, to keep the guys going in the right way all season long. And Bregman's going to be the guy that he would have reached out to a Juan Soto in the offseason to keep him with the Yankees. So that's why I like Bregman for the Yankees. Sure, are there better players that are better fits? Absolutely. For me, I think Bellinger probably fits better. I think Bregman's a better player, but Bellinger fits a need a little bit better and a left-handed hitter. Tucker, I think, would be a great fit for them. Just, of course, the contract is the big issue for me. Christian Walker would be a great fit as well. Also right-handed hitter, but he's a bigger need at first base. But I really like all of the options the Yankees have on the table. It's just a matter of one of them, the Yankees actually picking one of them and making their decision and putting their foot in the ground and moving forward. Michael, so what does the bullpen look like right now? Devin Williams trade. Basically, you have Williams back there. You have Leiter. A couple other seventh, eighth inning type of arms. But for me, they need a definitive guy to come in there that can take the reins if Devin Williams falters. They need another closer level pitcher in that eighth inning role. Leiter to me is more of a seventh inning guy, a matchup specialist, strikeout type of a pitcher. I would rather have a Tanner Scott, a Kirby Yates, a Robertson in that eighth inning role. We'll see which direction they go, but I don't think they're done adding to that bullpen. Sub-Zero, Christian Walker, Bregman, Tucker would be an A offseason. Absolutely. I think if you even get two of those options, it would still be an A offseason for the Yankees, even with the loss of Juan Soto, because they would have addressed their rotation, improved it. They have addressed their bullpen and improved it. They would have addressed their outfield lineup and improved it, made it more athletic as well. Really would like that offseason if that's how it turns out for the Yankees. I think it's Williams, Luke Weaver, Jake Colson's, Ian Hamilton, Loizinga, who's also has injury risk, Leiter, Petit, and Efras. The only one that really strikes fear into anybody for me is Williams. I love the Luke Weaver as kind of a Swiss Army knife. He can fit in an eighth inning role. He can fit in a seventh inning role. You can use him for multiple innings. Really like Luke Weaver, but I would definitely have Williams as my ninth inning guy. I'd probably have Weaver as the matchup guy along with Leiter that I can deploy in any situation. Loizinga, when healthy, is a great option for them, but that's a big issue, is his health. How healthy can he stay for the year? That's why he got a one-year deal from the Yankees. I like the deal, but they still need to add to that bullpen. Alrighty, let's go ahead and check in on Twitter one more time, see if anything else is happening this morning. Everybody talking about the trade here. In case you guys were wanting some information on the prospect that went in the Williams Caleb Durbin. Jeff Passan writes, has a unique profile. He's only 5'6", but plays everywhere. Think of him kind of like a Jose Altuve as far as stature. Second base, third base, short stop, and center field, has incredible bat to ball skills, just like Altuve. In 1,216 minor league plate appearances, he slashed 269, 374, and 407. 134 walks, better walk to strikeout ratio, and 110 stolen bases. High floor guy for Milwaukee. The one thing I noticed there is that the power numbers aren't there, especially for a 5'6" guy. I'm not expecting high power numbers. The on base is really what I like there with the 134 walks. He's going to have to prove that hit tool translates to the big leagues, but I love the idea of him coming in there and kind of being a leadoff hitter or a ninth place hitter to kind of keep that lineup turning over for Milwaukee. They've got some really good options offensively now. It was about them adding a starting pitcher there in Cortez and getting a really nice piece here in Caleb Durbin. Pete Alonso scared him to the AL. That's a funny one. Welcome in, Victor. If the Yankees don't land Tucker, then I think the Yankees are in trouble. I don't think the Yankees are in trouble if they don't land Tucker. I think they'd just be wise about their decision and realize the Cubs probably put the better offer out there anyway, that their time to be able to recruit Kyle Tucker would be in the offseason next year. They would still have plenty of options out there. Say they miss on Tucker and the Cubs ultimately win. I think the Cubs will probably win that sweepstakes for Kyle Tucker. It's only out of pure desperation that the Yankees might overpay to the point where their bid is better than the Cubs, which isn't great for their long-term future. But looking at the Yankees, say they don't bring in Kyle Tucker, what are their options? I think immediately they pivot to Cody Bellinger. You bring in Bellinger, you sign him to a deal. Say that the Astros steal away Christian Walker in free agency. You're unable to bring him in at first base. Then that means you put Bellinger at first base. You don't necessarily need to trade for Nathaniel Lowe. You go out there into free agency and you look at Teoscar Hernandez and say, hey, we got some big money here. We'll sign you to a deal, put you out there in right field, still keep Judge in center. Not ideal. I think the preference would be to move Judge to right to keep him healthier long term. But there are opportunities here. And, of course, you can still have Ben Rice play first. You can put Bellinger in center and still flex over Aaron Judge. But I still think there's a pathway to success even without Kyle Tucker. Then you look at the other options. Alex Bregman would be another great piece for them. But I think Bellinger is probably the first piece I would go for if I'm the Yankees if I don't bring in Kyle Tucker. And then after I bring in Bellinger, my next option I would try to get is Christian Walker. I think he'd be a great fit. Bellinger would solve the issue for Judge being in center, so you put him out there in center field, and you go forward from there. You added a couple of bats to that lineup. You've lengthened it out. You've added to that rotation. You've added to that bullpen. Is your lineup better with the Bellinger-Walker combo than having Juan Soto? Probably not, but I would say the cumulative effect of losing Juan Soto, bringing in Max Fried, bringing in Devin Williams, bringing in Bellinger, bringing in Walker, I think your team as a whole is better, and your team will perform better next season as well. And, you'll still have to add more pieces. I think there's still an opening for Kyle Tucker next year, even if you make the trade for Bellinger. But, the Yankees have a lot of options right now. They look good. I like the options that they have on the table. It's just a matter of them picking a direction and sticking to it. If Tucker's the guy and they really want to have him, and they overpay for him and they get him, great. They got the deal done. They got the guy. You hope that you sign him long term, but the cost is already sunk at that point. So then you have Tucker in your outfield as well. Dominguez, Judge, and Tucker in your outfield. That's a great outfield for anybody. And we'll see, which direction the Yankees choose to go, but I really like where they're headed, and even with the loss of Juan Soto. Let's just double check and see if anything else is happening. Got about 25 of you guys with us right now. Thank you guys for joining us early-ish on a Friday afternoon now, a little after noon here Central Time. Devin Williams, in case you guys are just joining us, has been traded to the New York Yankees for a package that includes Nestor Cortez, Caleb Durbin, a minor league second base prospect, minor league player of the year for the Yankees, and some cash. Love the deal from both sides. I think it's a win-win baseball trade. We could see another baseball trade in the next day or two with the Chicago Cubs possibly getting Kyle Tucker, with the Astros getting Paredes, Suzuki, and some prospects as well. Love the trades that are being discussed right now. I'm sure there's a few out-of-nowhere trades that we're going to see. This is one of the trades that we didn't really see coming. We knew Devin Williams was going to go somewhere. We knew the Yankees had interest, but there were other teams that had been more recently connected to Devin Williams that were seen as more of a favorite for Devin Williams. Ultimately, he goes to New York, and now we're going to see a run on relievers in the next 24 to 48 hours. I would expect a flurry of activity centering around Tanner Scott in free agency, centering around Kirby Yates as well. On the trade market, I imagine it's going to start picking up for some of those closer options out there as well. Appreciate you guys joining us this afternoon. We'll be live again this evening around 7, 8 o'clock, so be sure to join us then. Y'all have a great day. If there's any big signings that do happen out there, say Bregman signs or Burns signs or any of these big trades happen, we will immediately go live. So make sure you have your alerts turned on. You can check us out on X at Upside SN and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. I know quite a few guys have subscribed already to our YouTube. Really does help us out. If you haven't already, please do so. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you guys later on this afternoon.